But the money's all ending up in this education trust fund. And that sounds good. And that money can only be spent on education. The problem is that today we pay for education over here in the general fund. Maybe Delegate Smeagol will talk about this a little bit. But we pay about $5–6 billion a year for education in our general fund. Now, once we have this money over here, well, guess what? We don't need as much money for education over here. So that frees up $500 or $600 million to spend on everything else in Annapolis. Okay, now when the lottery came to Maryland, we were told, oh, it was for the children. It's going to go to the schools. Well, where did it go? It went into the general fund. People thought that we had learned our lesson and that we wouldn't fall for that again, so they tried to hide that a little bit this time. But it's not true. Anybody who tells you that this is money for the schools, you tell them that this bill does not guarantee a single net new dollar for schools. Not a single net new dollar for schools. People are going to tell you, well, people are just gambling out of Maryland. People are just taking their money outside of Maryland. And we got to get all that money back. All right? We're not going to get that money back, and I'll tell you why. Delaware, across the road, they have slot machine gambling, but their payout rate is about 92 cents. Okay, so what that means is the average dollar that goes into the machine, the return to the gambler is 92 cents. In Maryland, our bill says that the return to the gambler is going to be 87 cents. Okay, there's a 5-cent difference there. It's a 40% difference in what the gambler gets. Now, if I told you that I can get you groceries 40% cheaper in Delaware, or you can buy a car 40% cheaper in Delaware, are you going to shop in Maryland? No. If I told you that I can get you 40% better payoff on a slot machine in Delaware, you think you're going to gamble in Maryland? Absolutely not. Now, Dr. Lorenz pointed out that there are a lot of other co-addictions, comorbidities that go with gambling. Most gamblers are also smokers. Well, guess what? You can't smoke in a Maryland casino, folks. So what's going to happen? Smokers who gamble the hardest, the longest, and with the most enthusiasm are not going to gamble in Maryland. So if you think you're going to recapture all these Maryland dollars, you can forget about that. This is not the kind of bill that's going to make that a reality. But down the line, everything is open, everything's on the table because you've got lobbyists who are being paid millions of dollars in Annapolis. So what'll happen? Sky's the limit. A delegate yesterday who's in favor of slots told me 5 years we'll have full casino gambling here in Maryland. Okay, that's a delegate who voted for this bill. Those are his words. So we're going to get all of that. So when people tell you, oh, it's a constitutional amendment, it can't expand. Nonsense. It can expand, and it will expand. People will tell you that these stories are just anecdotal stories. You know, the story about the mother who bought the lottery ticket instead of the cough medicine for the child. All of these truly tragic stories that we hear, including the stories from Dr. Lorenz this evening. When they pile up one after the other, tens and 20s and hundreds and thousands, those aren't stories anymore. That's a body of evidence. When Indiana approved slot machine gambling back in the early 90s, in the first 14 months, they had over 70 incidents where parents abandoned their own children on casino property. 70 times in 14 months. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. So when people tell you, oh, there's no social costs to this, you tell them forget about that. There are huge social costs that go with this. Those are the kinds of arguments you're going to be hearing. It goes for education. It does not go to education. It's going to bring money back into the state of Maryland. It's not going to bring money back into the state of Maryland. It doesn't have social costs. It has huge social costs. So we know all of this. So we need to make sure that we're sharing that information with our friends and neighbors, coworkers. Unfortunately, that's not enough. as I mentioned, the proponents, the gambling industry, are spending $3.8 million. So they have spent so far $3.8 million on this campaign. Those numbers could go up. It wouldn't surprise me if they doubled. Now, how can they afford to spend $3.8 million on the campaign? Pretty simple. They're going to make that money back up in 2.5 days of revenues. 2.5 days. Okay, so they're going to continue to spend. So they're going to put paid people out on the streets, giving you literature that tells you the rosy scenario that this is all going to be great. Everybody's going to make money. There aren't going to be any tragedies. They're going to spend a ton of money making sure that message gets out. I need you to take responsibility for your polling place. So you need to get yourselves organized, and you have a great group of people here in Cecil County who have been dedicated to this. But you need to make sure you're at the polling place with literature and a sign telling people, please don't bring this predator to our county. Because people who are going to be deciding whether you have slots up here are going to be people in Baltimore County, in Montgomery County. Okay? You're not going to be primarily deciding this. So you need to make sure that you get every vote here. Every voter needs to understand the stakes. We're going to do what we can for Cecil in the rest of the state. But Cecil's going to have to stand up for itself here. It's critically important. So I want you to get organized. Dave Thompson, put up your hand. Dave Thompson from Elkton has been pivotal in this, right there in the back row. He would love to have your information. He would love to get you set up at a polling place. Delegate Smeagol, also working very hard on this. I'm sure he'd be delighted to give you some pointers on this. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. There are a lot of really wonderful speakers here to go, but I want to thank you again for caring enough about your community and about your state to be out here on a Friday night to hear about this important issue. So thank you very much.
Could you tell us a little bit about what's going on down in Baltimore County in that area? Because we know that in Cecil County, most of us in Cecil County, and we're hopeful, we have some Harford Countyans here. We're hopeful that Cecil County and Harford County can speak very loud and kind of offset some things. But what's going on down there?
Well, you know, ironically, we think we're going to do really well in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. So places like Montgomery County and Prince George's County. The proponents campaign, I was just told today, they bought $850,000 worth of TV ads in the D.C. suburbs. Now, we think we're going to hold those suburbs pretty well. We think that the areas surrounding these locations are going to need to pull together because that's going to be the margin. We believe the battleground is going to be Baltimore County and Baltimore City. And the great news about this is, because of the structure of this particular package, the constitutional amendment aspect of it, Governor Ehrlich has actually come out opposed to this. Yeah. And Baltimore County is that's his base. So we feel that we've got some reasons to be optimistic about Baltimore County. Baltimore City, we are throwing the full weight of our organization behind defeating this in Baltimore City. We have lots of pastors, the Baltimore Board of Rabbis, we have some imams, we have really scoured the city to make sure that this message gets out. And we have some very, very aggressive ideas planned. We're opening our Baltimore City campaign headquarters tomorrow. So we are going to do everything we can to win down there, but we all need to do our part. Again, this has the potential to be a battle of money, and we can't let the money decide it. We have to let the people decide it, and that's you. So, again, you know, get with your activists up here, and do not let your polling place go unstaffed. Do not let one person walk into that polling place without having them hear the story about how devastating this is going to be, not just for Cecil County, but for Maryland as a whole.
We appreciate it. All right. Thank you, Brother Aaron. God bless.